Hi everyone. Let's get started. People are still coming in, but I think that we can start. Tomer,
Sure.
hi. Good evening.
Hi, Eran. Good evening.
So everyone, welcome welcome to our Venture Insights with Tomer Nitzan, head of BDO USIsrael desk. This is a unique opportunity to gain first-hand knowledge and insights from a senior executive in a global firm with extensive knowledge of the Israeli market. We'll talk about investment trends and unique once-in-a-generation opportunities arising from Israel's geopolitical situation. My name is Eran Savir, and I'm the founder and managing partner of Savir Ventures. Savir is my third fund. Before that, I managed two other VC funds, and before that, I was a founder and entrepreneur. I founded three startups, two of which were acquired. Before we move on, just a quick disclaimer. The content presented today is not directed to any investors or potential investors and does not constitute an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any securities. Now that we have this off the table, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box at the bottom. You can put your name and LinkedIn there and network with the other participants. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A box at the bottom. We will address the questions later during the webinar. Tomer, good evening to you, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So thank you very much, Eran, for hosting this webinar. Pretty much excited about the topics we're going to be digging into. But first, as you suggested, my name is Tomer Nitzan, 42 years old. I am born and raised Tel Avivian from Israel. I'm a father of two, married to my beautiful wife, Moran. And over the years, I've been spending my time and splitting my time between Israel and the US markets. I had a very significant round that got me to the West Coast in Los Angeles, and also lived in the Midwest in Indiana for a couple of years, and did some very fascinating things, and pretty much was able to be part of extremely interesting and fascinating industries. From obviously financial industries is pretty common, but also got to spend time with diamond trading, both from the wholesale, the operation, and all the way up to the retail. Other than that, what I want to mention is that everything that I've done in 25 years of professional experience has always been on the level of bridging between the American and Israeli markets. And that makes me and positions me as someone who has very strong, exceptional tools to be supporting anything that goes in between those two specific markets in both directions, of course. And, you know, knowing myself, I don't think I'm ever going to be changing this position. And this is always going to be what's dictating me from choosing what I want to do with my next steps.
So thank you for that intro, Tomer. And just a quick comment. I'm getting messages as we kind of speak that the chat box is disabled and people cannot introduce themselves. So Ron, if you can enable the chat box so that people can put their LinkedIn and introduce themselves over there. I wanted to share some background about how did we actually came up with the idea for this specific webinar. Tomer and I had this conversation a few weeks ago, I think it was. We talked about everything that's happening in Israel and in the region and the geopolitical situation. And we both felt the same kind of frustration, I guess, from one hand, we see those opportunities in Israel and, in terms of technology and everything that's happening. And on the other hand, we see some investors kind of waiting to see what will happen and kind of sitting on the sidelines. And we thought that it could be like a very interesting, I guess, opportunity or a way for us to push people towards, seeing and addressing more opportunities here in Israel. And that's kind of, the background of why did we actually came up with the idea for this webinar. So I'm not sure if people can actually write in the chat box right now. So maybe I'm gonna write here. Okay, so I see it's disabled. It's enabled now. So yeah, everyone who wrote to me on WhatsApp, just go ahead and put your messages there. Once again, a reminder, if you have any questions for us, we will not be able to pick them from the chat box because it's going to be too crowded. Put them in the Q&A box at the bottom and we'll pick them up from there. So why don't we go ahead and start, Tomer, maybe if you can say a few words about, an overview of your role as the head of BDO US-Israel desk and how it bridges business opportunities between the two countries.
Sure. So as the head of the US-Israel desk at BDO, which is, again, I don't know if we want to dig into that too deep, but BDO is an accounting firm. Let's just put it out there. BDO is an accounting firm. We do anything from audit, tax, and consulting services, different kind of consulting and advisory services that we provide and support with. BDO is part of a global network, BDO Israel is part of the global network BDO. And we are the number 5 in the world. We're ranked number 5 in Israel. We're pretty stronger than what we are globally. But in a nutshell, everything that I do is supporting our core of services and expanding either our abilities to better support our clients or to open doors with new clients and new channels for BDO to grow on based on. The uniqueness of the US-Israel desk and how we've designed it about 10 years ago is that we actually collaborated and created a full joint venture between BDO Israel and BDO USA. And however they work independently, each one in their own market territories, we created this unique version of a liaison mechanism that better supports the system. First of all, and first and foremost, the system needed some sort of an integration component. And this is what, this is part of what I mainly do. And that is supporting between our professional teams to have more access to one another, to have a more fluent access to one another and help them actually work better between themselves. On top of that, of course, and that's something that's more likely on the internal side of the operation. On the external side, obviously, I work a lot with our clients. I work a lot with clients and prospects that I support personally. All of them are either American clients that have significant interest or existing operation in Israel already. And I just help them either, better support their existing operation or help them cross over and have whatever we can do to grow better this expansion plan. And obviously from the other side, anything that we can help for Israeli companies as they are considering or already executing their operation to cross over to the US market. So anything about that is first of all, just making sure that, at the basic level, our services are aligned and are provided with, the top proficiency and excellence, and making sure that we're not making any error that could project the ability of the clients to be successful. But at the same time, and this is exactly what the added values that the desk that we've created are bringing to the table as a game changer in our industry, is that we've understood that BDO as a global network has a lot of abilities and a lot of tools to help clients with the very vast and growing network and tools that we have gained over the years, both in Israel and the United States. And what we've designed is a very unique system under the US-Israel desk management that I run that is able not just to identify those exceptional tools and network abilities, but also designed a very strong executional roadmap to bring that to the table with the clients and actually engage them with those tools that help them. And obviously, we have tremendous success stories to tell. We're not going to tell that right now, but I'm happy to share anytime with anybody. It's just, I think this is the one thing that's I'm mostly excited about my work, is to be able to go deep into the business development operations of our own clients, even though this is not what we were hired for. That's not our engagement with the clients, but we consider the clients as almost as a partner to their own roadmap. And if they're going to be successful, we're going to be successful and grow based on their growth. And that means that we are aligned with our interests here. So we have all the interest in the world to open any door that we have within our network and make any tool that we have in our tool shed accessible for our clients, just to increase the rate and their chances to be successful.
Absolutely. And I've seen that thing happen in action, so I can vouch for that. Let's move on. Tomer, what are the current key market trends that you're observing in the Israeli venture ecosystem?
So we have to say the word, AI is what everybody's using, everybody's looking for. And, I think it's not just a catchphrase. I think there's a lot about AI that we're not even close to even identify the peak of the potential that is out there for anything that's involving or using AI as part of their entrepreneurship. So I think that a lot of people, as they're running their development plans and they're thinking about what they're going to be working on moving forward, I think that everybody understands that AI is an essential tool, that if they are able to get that involved and be a core component within anything that their product is offering or built to be offering. So that's a must today. And it's something that a lot of investors are looking for it. And therefore, the market is obviously translating anything from the core development to the marketing pitches to be consisted of AI components.
Yeah.
Because of the whole situation in the Middle East and in Israel specifically, obviously defense and everything that has to do with defense development is very, very high today. It's always been high. Israel is a strong defense developer, and therefore a lot of innovation, a lot of new items are coming out and new ventures are coming out from Israel that are defense related. Other segments, because of the situation and how the market has reacted to the conflict in Israel and the Middle East, obviously they're lower than usual, they're slowed down. But me personally, and I think we're going to be discussing this later, I think it's just something very temporary. So, I mean, if I'm looking at it, you asked about the current market trends, right? And I think that, entrepreneurs, they have to comply with the reality. The reality is, we can't fight it. The reality is that there's an active war taking place in Israel. So the ones that are on the defense innovation, they're, using that. They're using it to be more aggressive on the sales, be more aggressive on raising funds. And therefore, you see that rising higher. The ones that are slower down, what we see is something very interesting, because I don't think that they are just keep on banging the doors and looking for funds that are just not coming. I think that people understand that maybe this is a great timing for them to actually narrow down their own operation, make it a little more cost effective, and be more focused on the development and more on how they get to that point where I say temporary. How do they get to the point where the temporary situation changes and we're going into a positive market sentiment, where they actually have a better sales rate to demonstrate to investors. So they'll come out with a stronger hand from this conflict situation in Israel.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we focus, one of the things I'm focusing on is AI, and we definitely see many opportunities with AI. This, AI is being a very, very strong, I guess, keyword and buzzword for many things. But specifically for AI, I think that the opportunity exists on the top level, on the application level. That is also where we've seen, going back to 2008, where there was like the mobile and cloud revolution, like cloud and then mobile revolution. The application level was where most of the value was created. So, WhatsApp, Airbnb, Snapchat, Uber, this is where value was created, and we're seeing that here as well. So that's kind of where I guess the opportunity, with speaking about AI, exists. Moving on to the next question. So we kind of touched that or mentioned it, but it's not, I guess, a secret. What's happening in Israel? How do you think that the geopolitical situation impacted the investment trends and opportunities in recent months in Israel?
Okay, so that's, I guess, the hot potato, right? So if I'm talking about, if I'm not afraid, and I'm never afraid to touch hot potatoes. So obviously this is the reality in Israel. We can't be ignoring that. And I think that the smarter or the stronger entrepreneurs are usually the ones that are exploiting in a positive way any kind of situation and reality that they're facing, even if they're talking about a very poor reality. And the reality in Israel is very poor, unfortunately. But their situation caused to be to do any, I'm sorry, the situation in Israel caused to anything that is involved with doing business in Israel to be at a higher risk. And that is, it makes perfect sense. I mean, you don't know if your investment now, it's going to be yielding in 6 months, a year, or 10 years. And that obviously dragged foreign investors away from the market. We do see that foreign investors that already have boots on the ground in Israel, in any form, in any shape, we see that they're still exploring the market. Even though their pace has slowed down, they're still active. They're still actively looking. They're still actively negotiating. We see term sheets coming in and out, being thrown away from one side to another side. And so I can't say that the market is dead because of the situation and that people are in, bomb shelters all day. The market is running, but everybody pretty much adapted to the situation and kind of like fit into that. Each one in their own platform with their own, with the different sub-market that they're active in, with a different stage that, October 7 hit them when it happened. Everyone with their own set of network and connections. The ones that already have a boot on the ground in the United States, used it to be more branded as an American, an American company. The ones that are not are considering now doing a reverse sleeve kind of operation to become a foreign company. So their presence and their brand is going to be a foreign one. And obviously, I mean, this is the reality. So this is the immediate effect. But I want to give you another perspective that's very, in my opinion, it's very realistic. We're looking at the whole geopolitical situation, and I'm nothing a political analyst here, but I have to get connected to what's happening with local politics and geopolitical situation as we're supporting clients and we're kind of like advising them along the way. What we're seeing in Israel or in the Middle East, I want to say, is a very interesting formation of a local coalition. And it's very, if you're actually looking into the smaller details, you see that there's a stronger, power that's playing with the cards on the table. And that stronger power, obviously, is the United States. Over the years, the last 2 decades, the United States have invested tremendously in their attempt to transform the Middle East into a very friendly environment for business making in the Western world. Obviously, the whole political situation in the Middle East with Israel being kind of like not fully interacted with the entire area was a big hurdle, and still is a big hurdle on that vision to comply and actually be executed. So I think that what happened in October 7, and again, that's my conspiracy, but I feel very free to share that. But in my opinion, this whole process and how the United States have shifted the cards locally, that was part of the reason why October 7 really struck, or was maybe a trigger to the strike against Israel. And then what you saw is that their support of Israel on the back end during the attack was something that helped a lot of other what I call coalition members in the Middle East, potentially coalition members in the Middle East. It got them to understand that the United States speaks very seriously about this vision. And the vision is to create a very fluent geographical area that is open to communicate, to business making, for logistics, supply chain, anything that has to do with goods exchanges, to have a dry land bridge, and be able to also add on top of that anything that has to do with alternative energy resources coming in from the Gulf area, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, what I want to say about this is that it's almost inevitable to understand that this vision is going to take place. Sooner than later, it's going to take place. We don't know if it's going to take place in a year from now. You know, October 7, we were just a glance before the Saudi Arabia and Israel, they signed an agreement that was part of the whole Abraham Accords. And people, I don't know, maybe forgot about it at this point, but it was almost there. That bridge almost was completed. Once that bridge is going to be completed, the consequences are just insanely positive about how this area is going to be erupting on a positive side. You know, think about Dubai, think about the Emirates in general, not just Dubai, of course, and think about Saudi Arabia, think about Jordan, think about Israel. This is a land bridge that's going to be in need of so many components, from infrastructures, from supply chain developments, from anything, warehousing, naval ports. Think about anything that you can imagine. It just the imagination is just crazy, wild, crazy when you think about the potential. So if you're looking at the situation and how it affected Israel, I think that the upside, when it comes, not if, because I'm positive that it will come, the upside is going to be just probably twice or even more as valuable as what it would have been before. Because, you know, after war times, you always see the equations, how they're like shifting and going very strictly upstairs. This is where Israel is going to be facing. So now, and again, I know I've been speaking for a long time, but now the situation is that this is the lower level, and the ones that are active in this area at the lowest level are the ones that are going to be winning the best. So if I'm allowing myself to say, probably 2024, in my opinion, is probably the best year to be invested and you know, actively present in to be actively present in the Israeli and the entire area. If we're looking at from a decade perspective, like 10 years from now, people are going to say, I wish I would jump into the water back in 2024 when it was like down.
I completely agree with you. I'm also a very optimistic person, and I completely agree that, and I also think that now is probably the best time in recent generation, I guess, to invest in Israel and in Israeli technology. Looking at the Israeli history with recent conflicts, there's always been a bounce back, like a very drastic bounce back, and with the economy and with the investments and everything. So I completely agree that this is probably now the best time. There is also one more factor that I want to mention and maybe discuss about. Israel's innovation is happening regardless, I guess, of what's happening geopolitically, and there's been a few hundreds of startups being created every year in Israel. Regardless, I guess there's been slower years and more stronger, but this is still happening. But now there's less money coming into Israel, so I guess this is like an outstanding, I guess, buy opportunity for those who understand that we're now probably with one of the lowest stages. It could go lower, I guess, but looking at like you said, the generation perspective, or even like a 7-10 years perspective, I guess we're low. I think there's like a consensus, I mean, at least between you and me, and I guess between other peers in the industry, that 2024's vintage is going to be probably one of the best ever. And so I completely agree that this is probably one of the best times. By the way, one of the interesting indications that you can see is like the global funds coming back to Israel. Like Sequoia is coming back to Israel, or came back. Greylock, I think General Atlantic is has already come back. So you can see that like the shift of those funds that kind of stepped away from Israeli market like 15 years ago, they are coming back, and I guess for a reason. So I guess we're on the same page here. So looking at the specifically zooming into the Israeli ecosystem and the hub, what unique advantages does Israel offer to international investors compared to other startup hubs? I mean, you can look at Silicon Valley, New York, London. There's also interesting things happening there. Why Israel?
Why Israel? Wow. So we can look at it, why Israel now, or we can talk about why Israel in general. Which one you want, or you want a combination? Because
a combination is always
combination. Okay, combination. Okay, so first of all, Israel is an entrepreneurial market, has always been, and probably will always be a market that's looking for the next best thing. Like this is something that I guess is part of the local nature of Israelis. And by the way, I refuse to use the word Jewish, because we see amazing ventures coming in from the Arab sector as well, Muslims, Christians in Israel. So I don't think it's something that
one of the most amazing untapped opportunity in Israel, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, if we're putting politics aside and a lot of, news propaganda aside, you're actually looking into the numbers. You go down to the ground level, you see amazing collaborations that are cross-bordering sectors and segments, social segments in the Israeli population. So yes, I think that there's something about this melting pot in Israel, a very boiling melting pot in Israel, that's driving people all the time to think about how to be more efficient, faster, cheaper, anything. And this is something that's always been on the people's day-to-day. In the United, people always make jokes about how Israelis and foreigners, how they act differently, I don't know, in the supermarket when they're standing in line. And you just see, Israelis are going to be looking to the sideways to see if there's a new register that's opening up, and they can just boycott the line and just go and do this. And you see people that are not from Israel usually are going to just stand in line and just wait for their turn. And I don't know why, but this is, I guess, something that has to do with a local way of behavior that's kind of like diverse the way that Israelis think on anything that they do. So when they're dealing with computer engineering, or when they're dealing with logistics, or when they're dealing with defense mechanisms, they're always thinking, their mind is already set to think about how to do what they do better. They don't need a manager to sit on top of their head and tell them do it better. They're already thinking about it. And this is why all the entrepreneurs in Israel, this is why they just decided at some point to leave their beautiful jobs at Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, and just, go do their own entrepreneurship, because they were sitting in their cubicle doing whatever they were hired to do, got paid great money, and they thought about something that was part of what they do. It's the world of their expertise, of course, that they have the professional tools, but they said, okay, I know how I can do something that I'm using, but I know how to do it better. And then they said, okay, I'm going to do it, because they're ballsy. So they jumped over. So this is one angle of why Israel, because this is a country where every entrepreneur is always thinking about progress and improvement. So I guess this is a very strong card to pull when you're considering on which population to put your bets on. At the same time, I think that, you have to look at the current timely manner situation in Israel. And obviously now is a great timing to get in. I mean, if you're already hooked on Israel as a go-to market, if you've invested in an Israeli company before, if you had an operation in Israel, if you met Israeli entrepreneurs in foreign markets and invested in them, and you already know the quality, so it's easy for you to say, okay, I'm hooked to the idea of investing in Israel. The question is when, and then goes into the whole risk and premium kind of equations. And I think that obviously, if you're a little more of a risk lover, this is a great timing to go. If you're a risk hater, then wait for the Sequoias and GE, to start running their operation, and then try to catch the wave as it's rising up. But you most likely the players that are not the strongest players, they're not the leading players, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to catch that train before it's going to be too late for them, and valuations are going to skyrocket again, and it's going to be too much for the, let's call it, the median and the lower level of players.
I agree, and I want to add to that. I guess most people already know that Israel is considered to be one of the best places to start a company in the world. As I said, there's Silicon Valley, New York, London. Israel is like third or fourth place in the world, best places in the world. One of the interesting things that I'm seeing as an investor, and I meet a lot of founders, is that it's always been kind of known that Israeli founders are resilient, and they can, if there's like a hurdle, they will go through the wall to complete the mission. And now, we meet these founders who literally came back from war. They literally went through walls to fight, to survive, and you see them eager to win. This is something that you cannot see anywhere in the world. And so you get one of the best ecosystems in the world with the most resilient founders that you can get right now anywhere in the world. And I think that this is like an amazing, amazing opportunity that makes Israel so unique, especially now in these times. Okay, so now I guess we were so positive and optimist. So I guess there's also there's the flip side of that, challenges and risks involved with investing in Israel. And so what do you think that investors should consider when they want to look at Israeli, the opportunities of the Israeli market?
What do you mean? What
like what are the challenges and risks that people need to be aware of? And
okay, but that's I mean, aside from anything that's happening on the geopolitical side, you're talking, right? Because that, I think, we've drilled into that topic enough.
Yes.
Other than that, I think that obviously, listen, when a foreign investor is looking into investing in a different place, English is a global language. Arabic is a local language, but Spanish is a global language. But when you're speaking a global language and you don't know the culture, you still have this hurdle that could be something that keeps you away from scoring it big. So, again, I can bring a lot of examples from our day to day. We meet a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of companies. They're coming in. Everybody speaks English in Israel. It's very easy. However, you have just so many stories about people coming in from a roadshow that they had, and they're giving you the feedback on what happened, and just the way they express or the way the feedback is being presented to me, I know that nothing is going to come out of it, and they are just sure that they hit the bullseye. And you just know that. I mean, if you know the culture enough, you know to interpret better the signs or the kind of reaction, but passive reaction, the one that are byproduct. They're not like the direct communicative feedback that you're getting when you're meeting with those people on the other side. So again, different culture is the biggest barrier. And when foreign players coming into Israel, not necessarily they're going to be successful. We've seen a lot of hits of foreign investors that were just, thrown into arenas where they thought they're getting something, they didn't get the same thing, then they got burned, and then they didn't want to keep on doing business there. Then they thought that everybody in Israel is a crook. It's like it's piling up, it's piling up. So, and obviously, if you're looking at it from the other direction, if you're looking at an Israeli company that's going abroad, if you don't have someone who knows how to speak to the other side, who's been part of the local community and understand how to communicate with them, I'm not going to say that you have zero chances, but you're decreasing your chances big time. So that's one obstacle. Aside from that, I mean, I think that you just need to think about how to prepare yourself. And that's also a different mentality. Americans, they have protocols. They know how to go and follow protocols. Israelis, they just make up protocols as they go. It's nothing is concrete. And with Americans, it's very concrete. Like we check those boxes one by one and at the right order. Israelis, we have some suggestion. We'll go there, we'll play along, we'll make it work, don't worry. And that when you have those two different mentalities, when they're sitting in the same room, it doesn't always lead to a good result. And I'm not saying that one of them is better than the other one. I think the combination between them is amazing. And by the way, somebody told me something as a joke back at the time that Americans live by protocols that were designed by Israelis, talking about security protocols, defense protocols, whatever. But it's like that's a big hurdle. But again, just generally speaking, you obviously have the current situation that's creating a different scenario. But for every hurdle, you have a solution. And you said something before.
That would, I guess, be my next question, I guess. So yeah. So what's going to be your advice?
You said something before, and I just want to use that. You talked about how resilient Israeli entrepreneurs are or considered to be resilient. I think that the mentality of Israelis, and as the mass majority of Israelis coming out of the Israeli Defense Forces, is that you have to find a solution. There's no like, okay, it's a dead block. What do? We fold and we go back. No, there's no solution like that. You have to find a solution to go beyond that dead block. And that is something that, if I'm applying that to my protocols, differentiators between how Israelis and Americans, how they play, then yeah, Americans are going to follow those protocols. When one item on the protocol is not going to be able to be checked, they're going to say, okay, it's not doable. Like we fold, we go back. Israelis, they will find a way to do whatever they need to make it fit. And again, that goes to the whole nature of how or why they're always thinking about a better solution, or why they're thinking about how they can do something that will work as opposed to something that's not working, or not providing the right solution at the moment, or not providing a solution at all. So so you asked how you overcome those hurdles.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, the immediate answer, is and it's something Israelis don't usually like to take this advice on, is you have to use a local expert. You have to use someone who knows what you need them to do, or what you want to comply. So if you want to sell to Americans, you need to have someone who knows how to sell to Americans. That is a job description. This is not something that, you did great sales in Israel and now you can just sell to Americans. Maybe yes, maybe not. Maybe this is something that will be good temporary one-time sales track record positively, but it could also be something that's not sustainable. And then you need to think about it. And if you're going into a foreign market, you have to understand how the foreign market is functioning, and you have to comply with how that market is functioning, and build your operation to be talking or beating to the same drum.
And so for those investors that we have in the audience that, we convince them they want to, start being operational in Israel. Okay, so how do they kind of reduce risk or overcome these challenges that you mentioned?
So again, I work with a lot of venture capital players around the world. I mean, mainly in the United States and obviously in Israel. I work with a lot of them who are not active in Israel. One of my roles is to try and get them closer to Israel, or help them use the bridge that we've created to just have better access with less risk. Because if you open the doors for them and you kind of help them navigate through, you just help them to minimize the risk. So this is part of an answer to your question. I mean, I think that the first thing that someone needs to do, if they haven't done business in Israel, they haven't invested in Israel before, they need to, in my opinion, they need to start by using a local player. That, obviously you need to do a good market research, and make sure that you choose your partner wisely. But this would be the first move. This would be the first step. And obviously, if you want to go deeper, you give it a couple of years, you have a great run, you feel more confident about it, you get a better feel of what you're getting out of the investment, and then you want to go deeper. Then, building and creating a business plan that help you dictate, you start with a roadshow, you go to Israel 2-3 times a year, everything is pre-planned. You have maybe somebody on the ground at some point that helps you and be kind of like your outsource, or like the local sourcer for any kind of potential investments. And then you always have somebody that's looking out for you and making sure that everything is in hand. And then, I don't know, I mean, if that works well, maybe come up with a local management group that operates on a 24/7 base. And, then again, it goes deeper and deeper and more professional. And obviously you have to do some tax consulting about it, and, making sure that, your LPs back in the States, if you have any LPs backed up, you have to make sure that everything that you do in foreign markets is not really affecting them in a way that will affect your relationship with them. So you always need to think about both areas, but when you go into foreign markets, you're actually getting closer to your targets. So the premium is just higher than waiting for them to come to you.
So you mentioned here tax. By the way, just before there is like a question in the Q&A box that I'm gonna ask it. You don't need to dig for it. In fact, most companies in Israel are being incorporated in Delaware nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's good or bad news, but this is like the fact. And most of the funds in Israel are also incorporated outside of Israel. So I guess for tax, this is, I guess, something that needs to be considered. But there's like this question in the Q&A box that someone asked about tax. And I'm not sure how to address it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you provide foreign private investors a zero tax reduction certainty under the current tax regulations, assuming tax rules for SPVs is still kind of less established.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm going to say something beforehand. I'm not a tax consultant. I'm not a CPA. I refuse to be a CPA. My dad is a tax consultant. My dad was a partner at a global firm. But I'm aware of this situation. I know what this person, I don't think that we have their name, but I know what they're asking about it. It's something that is dealt with and being supported by our tax team. I don't want to go into this because this is very professional. And obviously it's something that goes, you can't ask a tax consulting question without referring to the background and the features of that person that the tax consideration is relating to. So I mean, obviously there are ways to assure that. I'm saying is I'm trying to answer it generally speaking. There are ways to do it. There are consultancy programs that help you just enhance your tax position at the best level, but you have to consult with somebody. There's no there's no an easy answer for that on how to do it, and then it's a grab and go thing. There's no grab and go in tax consultancy.
Yeah, and there's never a generic answer to those questions. So
no, and I learned that from my house. That's something my dad always taught me. There's no generic answers for tax questions.
I completely agree. Well, which leads me to another kind of topic we discussed about. And I want to quickly ask this: what role does the government support play in fostering innovation and venture investment in Israel? So, we have the Innovation Authority in Israel. How do you see that kind of support the local ecosystem?
So let me see that I understand your question. Okay, you're asking about local government support and how that is an added value when a foreign investor is considering investing in Israel, right?
Yes, and generally speaking, I mean, for those who kind of less understand the economics and the dynamics of the local system, of the local ecosystem, I think it's important kind of at least to mention. And more specifically, there's been a few initiatives that were created after October 7th. So if you just say a few words about this, generally speaking.
Okay, so there is a strong tie between the Israeli government, the Israeli Innovation Authority, IIA, and the Israeli technology community. It's always been, obviously, the Israeli government and Israel as a country have designated the technology segment as something extremely exceptional that they have. And it was something that always been nurtured tremendously positive by the government. And a lot of funds are being allocated to support growing companies. We've seen great successes of Israeli technology in the global world. Some of them were more branded, some of them were less branded, but everything that we touch globally that has technology segments in it, it's almost unlikely that you're not going to find some sort of an Israeli technology component that's involved in those solutions. So the Israeli government understands the value, and they understand that they need to nurture that. And obviously, if we're looking at the geopolitical situation, that they're now in a big conflict because they're not just fighting, an actual war with terrorists. They need to also take care of a lot of internal conflicts that Israel has as a country politically, and make sure that all those conflicts that they're facing and Israelis are facing are not hurting the technology community from keep on flourishing from Israel. We talked about how the current situation and the fact that foreign investors are kind of drifted away from the Israeli market, how it got a lot of Israeli entrepreneurs to be more driven into shifting or the balance of their company by reverse sleeving on a tax level to become a foreign company. Or even, if they're starting a new company, they're not even started in Israel. That's a big loss for Israel. That's a big loss financially for the tax administration and eventually for the public. So this is a big problem right now that I'm sure that whomever it is that needs to be worried about that is worried about that and trying to think how they can do what they can do in order to prevent it from escalating. So to answer your question, I think that when a foreign investor is looking into Israel, they need to understand that they're investing in an area that's highly supported by the government. And whether the government is directly investing in any of your investments as an investor, indirectly, it is definitely something that provides a better surface for those investments, for those innovation entrepreneurships to flourish based on. So I hope that answers your question, but it pretty much is.
And it's also important to I guess to explain that this is in most cases like non-dilutive funding.
Yes, of
So
course.
you will not see
Obviously,
the government on the company's cap table.
Yeah,
If
government
like,
funding is probably has the best terms when it refers to receiving financing from anyone that's considered an investor.
Exactly, like the government is pairing investment that comes from the private market. That's kind of the government's way, or the Innovations Authority's way, to make sure they put money where it will be beneficial. So they kind of wait for like a signal from the private markets, where investors put their money. Some government money will get in, and the companies will return that money when they actually generate sales and revenues. So that's kind of important to mention. And it's also important to mention that there's been a few emergency funds that were created by the Innovation Authority, which was actually quite amazing to see. At the beginning of the war, government money was looking for those companies who have a very short runway to make sure they're funded. They will not kind of close because they don't have enough funding. And so we'll see the result of that, I guess, in a few years. But that's about government. And I don't want to be too much sponsoring them, but that's about that question. Maybe we kind of we are kind of reaching the end of the webinar. So maybe just Tomer, just one last final closing question. And I see that we have a bunch of few questions in the Q&A, but I think we don't have enough time to address them. So just one closing question. If you could give one piece of advice to aspiring entrepreneur and investors looking to make their mark in the Israeli venture ecosystem, what would it be?
Okay, it's a big question. I think that if I'm trying to inspire somebody to look into the Israeli venture market as a go-to market to invest in, I think that just, take a little piece of paper, write down all the different Israelis that you've met with in your lifetime, or like the top 10 that you can think of. Try to think as you go through those names, those lists, try to think about what was exceptional about them. What was exceptional about them that got you to reflect about them or have them jump out of your head as you were looking into doing this theoretical assignment that I'm just throwing out there. And try to identify the why with what we just discussed and see if you see the correlation. I mean, if you're saying that 8 out of 10 were, they were resilient, they had brilliant ideas, they had amazing innovative solutions for things that they came up with as part of their day-to-day job. They dropped everything, went on an entrepreneurial journey and risked everything because they believed in this. If that correlated to what we discussed, then you already are inspired. You just don't know this. And I think that I think that people need to understand that, despite the fact that I'm speaking out of Israel right now, maybe people are looking at me as somebody who's speaking out of a position. I really think that Israel is here to stay. And if Israel is here to stay, it's just going to grow bigger and stronger. Just like you said, Israelis are resilient. When they're coming out of a crisis situation, they're just going to go harder and more powerful than ever before because they want to improve. They have a lot to improve, but also prove for anybody, for themselves, for the global community, for anybody who didn't believe that Israel is going to be surviving. It's part of the mentality. So when Israel is going to come out of it, it's just going to be, I don't know, it's going to be bigger than ever. So this is what my 2 cents is going to be about, why people should be inspired about at least exploring the market and doing a thorough research about the current situation and why they should consider investing in Israel.
Amazing. Such a great way to end our webinar.
Maybe too positive, I don't know.
So positive and inspiring. So,
Sure.
Tomer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And it was like an epic session. Thank you very much. And everyone, thank you for joining us, and see you next time.
Thank you very much, Eran. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.